You know, there are some mysteries out there that sound like they were pulled straight from a horror novel. But this one is terrifyingly real. For over 60 years, it has remained one of the most chilling, most baffling, unsolved cases of the 20th century. It's a story that just seems to defy all logic.
And that right there, that's the question at the heart of this whole thing. Think about it. 9 seasoned hikers, people who knew the wilderness inside and out, suddenly make a decision that is so bizarre, so self-destructive, it's almost impossible to comprehend. To even begin to understand what might have happened, we have to go back to that fateful night.
So our group is made up of students and recent grads from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. And let me be clear, these were not amateurs. They were all highly skilled, certified hikers on a really tough expedition. They were smart, they were capable, and they knew exactly what they were getting into. They set up their last camp on the side of a mountain whose local name in the Mansi language translates to Dead Mountain. Yeah, ominous, right?
When the group didn't check in as scheduled, a search party was sent out, and what they stumbled upon was just eerie. The tent was completely collapsed, but the really strange part? It had been sliced open from the inside. All their gear, their warm coats, their boots, their food, was all neatly stacked inside. Leading away from this bizarre scene was a set of footprints in the snow. But these weren't boot prints. No, these tracks were made by people who were either barefoot or just wearing socks in temperatures that plunged to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Just imagine that for a second.
The abandoned camp was just the start of the nightmare. As the search party followed those chilling footprints down toward the tree line, what they found next just plunged this mystery into absolute horror.
Just take a look at this timeline. It really shows you how slowly this whole tragedy unfolded. The group set up their final camp on February 1st, and then silence. A search doesn't even get going for almost 3 weeks, and it would take all the way until May, when the snows began to thaw, for the full horrifying picture to finally emerge.
So the searchers followed those tracks down the slope for almost a mile, and that's when they made their first grim discovery. At the edge of a forest, under a huge pine tree, they found 2 bodies. It was Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. They were lying next to the burnt-out remains of a small fire they had clearly been desperate to keep going. But the scene itself was just baffling. Why were these 2 men, in the middle of a Siberian blizzard, dressed only in their underwear? It makes no sense. And then there was this. Branches on the pine tree were snapped off way up high, like 5 meters up. Had one of them frantically tried to climb it? Were they trying to spot the camp? Or were they trying to escape something on the ground? The search continued. Between that pine tree and the abandoned tent, they found 3 more bodies. The group's leader, Igor Dyatlov, was one of them, along with Zinaida Kolmogorov and Rustem Slobodin. Just based on where they were found, it looked like they were making one last desperate attempt to crawl back up that freezing dark slope to the safety of their tent.
So at this point, 5 of the hikers had been found. All seemed to have died from hypothermia. But there were still 4 people missing. The brutal winter held on, and for 2 agonizing months, nobody knew what had happened to the rest of the group.
Finally, on May 4th, as the snow began to melt, the last 4 hikers were discovered. They were buried under more than 13 feet of snow in a deep ravine not far from that pine tree. They were dressed a bit more warmly, and it turned out some of them were wearing clothes that belonged to their friends who had died first. It was a heartbreaking sign of their fight to survive. But the condition of their bodies, well, that's what turned this tragedy into an unsolvable enigma. And this, right here, is the absolute core of the mystery. The first 5 hikers who were found, they died from the cold. But the last 4, the ones in the ravine, they had suffered catastrophic internal injuries. One had a crushed skull, 2 others had shattered ribs. And the medical examiner said the force needed to cause that kind of damage was like being hit by a car. But, and this is the craziest part, their bodies had almost no external wounds, no bruises, no cuts. It was as if they had been crushed from the inside out.
So with all 9 bodies recovered, the official Soviet investigation kicked into high gear. But the evidence was contradictory, the circumstances were beyond bizarre, and the investigators were left with a puzzle that just had no logical pieces. What they finally wrote in their report would only make this story even more legendary.
The final report basically just confirmed all the bizarre facts we already know. Deaths from both the cold and some incredible violent force. No sign of anyone else being there, no struggle, and a tent that was, without a doubt, cut open from the inside.
With absolutely no rational explanation in sight, the investigators just closed the case, and they stamped the files top secret.
And this is the line, the one phrase that has echoed through the decades. The case was shut, and the official cause of death was attributed to a compelling unknown force. I mean, what does that even mean? It's one of the most mysterious and vague conclusions in the history of investigations, and it left the door wide open for a lifetime of speculation.
So when the official answer is basically, we don't have a clue, you can bet that people are going to start coming up with their own theories. They range from the totally plausible to the completely paranormal. Let's dig into the 3 big ones.
Okay, so let's start with the most rational, most scientific theory, a slab avalanche. The idea here is that a big sheet of packed snow slid down and slammed into their tent. It didn't bury them completely, but it blocked the entrance and probably felt like the whole mountain was coming down on them. In that moment of pure terror, they slashed their way out and just ran for the cover of the woods.
Now, on the surface, this theory explains the cut tent and why they ran off without their gear. It makes a certain amount of sense, but there are some major problems. First, the slope where they camped wasn't very steep, not at all the kind of place you'd expect a dangerous avalanche. Second, the search party found no physical evidence that a slide had even happened. And you have to ask yourself, would expert hikers like these guys really set up camp in a spot with any avalanche risk?
All right, so if it wasn't an avalanche, what about something weirder? This next theory sounds like science fiction, but it is based on a real scientific phenomenon called infrasound. The idea is that the unique shape of the mountain, combined with powerful winds, created a vortex that produced a sound so low frequency humans can't hear it, but you can feel it. And it's been known to cause intense, unexplained panic, nausea, and just a feeling of pure dread.
Now, this is a pretty compelling idea, right? It could explain the sudden, irrational madness, why they fled in terror from something they couldn't even see. But the theory has one massive, glaring hole. It does absolutely nothing to explain those brutal car crash-level injuries on the last 4 hikers. And that brings us to our final, and maybe most sinister, theory.
This is the conspiracy theory that suggests that the hikers were just in the wrong place at the absolute worst time. That camping out on this remote mountainside, they stumbled across something they were never meant to see, a top-secret Soviet weapons test. And what they witnessed led to their deaths, either directly from the weapon itself or from a military cleanup crew silencing them afterward.
And you know what? There's some spooky circumstantial evidence for this. Another group of hikers, about 50 kilometers away, reported seeing strange orange spheres floating in the sky, right in the direction of Dead Mountain, on that very night. Those crushing internal injuries with no external wounds, that's eerily consistent with the pressure wave from something like a concussion bomb. And of course, the fact that the Soviets immediately classified the case and locked it away for decades, that just adds fuel to the fire.
An avalanche, killer sound waves, a secret military weapon, and these are just the most popular theories. Over the last 60-plus years, the questions have only multiplied, and this tragic event has become an enduring, terrifying modern myth.
The Russian authorities have actually reopened the case a few times, most recently in 2019. Their latest conclusion? It was probably an avalanche. But even they had to admit that key details still couldn't be explained. For the families, and for millions of people fascinated by this case, that answer has never been good enough.
So in the end, where does that leave us? We're right back where we started, with the story of 9 promising young lives cut short, and a puzzle that has no easy solution. A sliced tent on a frozen mountain, barefoot tracks in the snow, and that final, chilling verdict of a compelling unknown force. It's a mystery that continues to haunt us, and it forces us to wonder if some questions are just never meant to be answered.